Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Sylvan here. Today we are back to officially start D-format, or at least start D-format content here on my channel. Today we are doing Magnolia. And I know you're wondering, hey, wait a minute, that's not Magnolia. Exactly, this is Magnolia. So you may be wondering why I now have to put up an image on the screen. Well, actually it's because of this. Recently, my country has just started going through a whole new set of COVID regulations and whatnot. So I was actually supposed to film a Magnolia deck profile today, but unfortunately we cannot because the person who has the deck that I made the list is not with me physically. So instead, I requested for the player to actually take pictures of the deck and send to me so that I could still get it reviewed. You could call it like a remote review of sorts. Which I know sounds pretty lame, and you guys are gonna be like, hey, what the hell, I've been cheated of a review. But I promise to make sure that it is as accurate and still as entertaining as possible. We've also updated this deck all the way to the latest currently available in the D format, which would be Festival Collection. So I seriously hope that you guys still enjoy this video. So now let's get started with the Ride deck. So the Ride deck in D is this new thing where you take out 4 cards from your deck, put it in a different sleeve, and they become the core of your deck. So this is basically a guaranteed ride target for you in the new D format. The thing is that you start off with a ride deck of 4 and 1 card of each grade. You get the grade 0 for free, and then once per turn, by discarding 1 card at the start of your ride phase, you get to access 1 card in this ride deck from grade 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So every ride deck starts off in the same. You have a grade 0, you have a grade 1, you have a grade 2, and then you have a grade 3. But seeing that this is not this deck profile, this is for Magnolia deck profile. Magnolia deck profile, we will have this right line. So the right line is literally just the same in terms of the grade. So let's actually get into it. The grade 0 is this little cat Sylvan thing. All starters have the same skill, by the way. When ridden upon, if you are going second, draw a card. Pretty straightforward. The second one is Cherish, this little Bulbasaur looking thing. His skill is, when ridden upon by Lattice, the grade 2 in this right deck, you superior call the top card of your deck, and if you can't superior call it, basically if it's an order card, you put it to your soul. So it's a neat little soul charge at worst, and a +1 to the board at best. I think that's pretty neat. The next skill of it is actually a rearguard skill, because it can be used in both the right deck and the main deck, right? The main deck skill, the rearguard skill, is when it attacks from the back row, this unit gains 5,000 power. And you may be like, huh? Attack from the back row? Well, yes, this is because Magnolia is a multi-attacking deck, which is very evident just by reading the very first card of this deck. A plus to the board, as well as the ability to attack from the back row. So that's how Magnolia actually multi-attacks. You can do up to 6 attacks on a very good turn with your Persona, right? 6, 1 for each circle. So we are going to actually maximize this and try and see how we can actually bring out the best potential in it. The second one is the grade 2. It's I don't really know what animal this is, this Lattice guy. If you know what animal this is, put in the comment section below. You great nature fellas, put in the comment section. I'm not a biology person. When ridden upon by the grade 3, Magnolia, Soul Blast 1, superior call the top card of your deck. So it's the same as Cherish, but if you cannot superior call it, you add this card to your hand. So instead of just soul charging this spell card, you instead put it back in your hand, which is it's pretty neat considering you did pay a soul blast for it. It's still a free one. And its second skill is when it attacks from the back row rearguard, you soul blast 1 when he attacks, and he gains 10k. So instantly he goes up to a 20k beater, and thanks to the skill of Magnolia, which you're going to write about now, it goes up to actually 25k, which is pretty lethal in terms of numbers, magic numbers in this format. It's really good. The downside is obviously that it needs soul to activate, so keep that in mind. Stoichid does have a little bit of a soul issue here and there. You do have to take care of soul. It is one of the big resources that they use. So generally, good management of soul, you shouldn't have a problem. The last big chunky big dragon, I have no idea what animal this is. You guys know, you guess say, okay? It's Sylvan Horned Beast King. Yeah, he's a king. Magnolia. So his skill is, after he attacks, you counter blast 1, choose one of your back row rear guards, it gains 5,000 power and the ability to attack from the back row. And if you Persona road this turn, choose 3 units instead of 1. Now, why does this actually matter? Is because on turn 3, you have 4 attacks. 3 in the front row, 1 from the back row. If you persona row it, which is basically you riding the same grade tree over another. So for example, if this is my Vanguard, I persona ride, meaning that I have another copy of it, and then I ride on top of it. So that is actually the persona ride. It's persona blast means it's kind of copy the same name, persona ride on top of the same guy. It's pretty common sense. It was a pretty simple mechanic for Bushiroad to make for this new format. So I'm glad it's not that, hard to pull off or confusing. But honestly, it's a bit uninspired, but I think it's still really fun. I think Persona Rides are a really neat introduction. It kind of brings out more stuff on turn 4, not like V where everything was so escalated. So I think this is definitely a neat inclusion. Magnolia, however, is dependent on being Persona Row on turn 4 in order to actually bring out the lethal endings in terms of your many multi-attacks. So make sure you can get as many copies of Magnolia in your hand as possible. Now, let's move on to the grade trees. In the grade trees, we literally just have 4 Magnolia. That's pretty much it, because the deck's main attackers are all the grade 2s, so therefore we mainly play 4 grade 3s for the 4 Magnolia. Very simple, it's your main right target, it's your persona right, it's your main boss, simple as that, full stop. Now I have, and I do want to spend a bit of time to address this, so I think I will. In Festival Collection, since I did say we are covering the most recent Story Chess support up till Festival Collection, you'll notice there was actually one grade 3 that was also revealed as a generic support for Stoicheia. This can be used for both Zorga and Magnolia. It's actually Hydro Rail Dragon. Hydro Rail Dragon's effect is, at the end of this battle that this unit attacks hit, you can kill itself, you choose a grade 3 normal unit from your drop zone and add it to your hand. So it looks and it sounds pretty good, right? I mean, come on, it's a grade 3 recycler, which means you can just take your Magnolia back, you could take this card back, so you could either protect it, put it in your hand, or you could cycle Magnolia back, save it for another Persona, right? Anyways, you Soul Blast quite a lot, so if there's a Magnolia Soul Blast it, cycle it back. Really simple, yeah. There are quite a fair bit of problems with this card still, at least from my testing and from my games. Firstly, this card does literally nothing offensively. It just helps you maintain longevity. It just ensures that, hey, I will be able to Persona Ride if the attack hits. Yeah, but it doesn't really help the attack hit because it's still just a 13k body. Secondly, it has the hit. So if your opponent just guards it, good luck to you. You just don't get anything out of this card. It's just effectively worthless. So really, I am a fan of Hydro Rail as a card, but I just don't think it's worth playing, at least in Magnolia. I'm not really clear about Zorga, whether it's worth, but then again, Zorga needs a lot of good cards to survive. Regardless, I think that this version of Magnolia that we play now, it has so much offensive potential that you don't really need a vanilla grade 3 beater to just cycle back another grade 3 to Persona, right? If you can just kill them on turn 4 or on turn 5, then this card's value virtually just drops to 0, since why are you prolonging the game for? That's just my take on it, at least from what I've tested. I just don't think it's worth it. If you guys like Hydro Rail, test it when you get Festival Collection, if you get Festival Collection, but at least for me, I know for a fact that this is a skip for my deck. Moving on. And now we move on to the grade 2s. The grade 2s, we actually have quite a lot of grade 2s. It really almost feels like I'm playing Altmile, but that doesn't really matter. So basically, we have 4 copies of Lattice, which is the thing from the right deck. 4 Duga. Duga's the tiger looking guy. We have 4 Gnosia. Gnosia is the pink bear thing with antlers. I may be mispronouncing the names. We have 3 Eliana, the plant girl who looks like Asha, and 2 of the Blitz Order spell card, which is Ghost Chase. Just 2 copies. So let's actually delve in, because this is the big part of the deck. Like I said, it's mainly an aggressive deck, and this deck mainly uses grade 2 beaters to start hitting them off and just killing the opponent as fast as possible. So let's just get into it. In order of the names that I've just mentioned, for Lattice. Lattice at base power from the back row is a 15k attacker using Magnolia, and it goes up to 25k attacker if it's using a Soul Blast. So it's still pretty good. It's a good option, but it needs Soul. So generally you want your soul to be spent there, right? Yes. So our next beater, Duga, which is the tiger, it's completely free of a beater. Its skill is, as long as you have 4 or more rearguards during your turn, it gains 5,000 power. So it's literally just 15k for completely free. And if you use Magnolia's skill, it goes up to 20k. But the even better part of Duga is that he does not need to be in the back row. You see, Lattice's skill to Soul Blast requires him to be in the back row, whereas Duga can actually be front or back. Duga is the most flexible card in the entire of the Grade 2 arsenal. He's just 15k all-rounder, any circle you put him. It's just really that good. Moving on to Gnosia, the triple rare bear. It is the main powerhouse of the deck. It's where most of the deck's numbers really come from. Its skill is from the back row rearguard. When it attacks, counterblast 1, choose one of your units, add this unit's current power to that. So the thing is, using Magnolia's skill turns this guy from a 10k to a 15k. So at minimum, you're adding 15,000 power to any other rearguard of your choice. It just instantly means that you will be able to now allow another unit that was previously unable to touch the opponent to now touch the opponent, because 15k boost is just no joke at all. The worst part is that it's transferred this unit's power to someone else. So literally any trigger that you put onto the bear, you get to double that trigger effect by passing it to someone else. It's really that insane. This is really one of the key cards, the most important cards you need from booster set 1 for the Sylvan deck. I just really can't emphasize how good this is. Your assaults really don't feel that threatening without this. I'm not saying fill up your entire back row of 3 of this thing. That's also very unreasonable and very resource heavy, but definitely at least having the presence of 1 or 2 is threatening enough. I can promise you that. Eliana, the double rare plant girl, is here for a completely different reason than Duga. Eliana is here as a little safety net. Her skill is, when placed on rearguard from hand, CP1 SB1, come plus 1, so plus 1, choose a grade 2 or lower card from your drop zone, superior call it, and give that unit 5,000 power until the end of turn. So here we actually have a board builder, a Grand Blue style board builder, since Grand Blue is one of the components that makes Stoicheia. So despite the fact that this looks very great nature-ish, we are using some necromancy here, and we put a new Nectar Girl on it, so don't be surprised, fellas. The thing is that you get to build a board. So with her, she's 10k, you call something else, it's something plus 5k. It's really good for board building. And you can use this from turn 2 onwards, since it doesn't require your Vanguard to be grade 3 or any of that sort. Cool. Its main drawback is really simple. It has to be called from hand, and it's counter blast 1, soul blast 1. Your counter blast and your soul blast are just incredibly so valuable to you. So the fact that this takes 1 of each is really painful. Eliana is one of those cards that I consider as an extreme last case resort, despite the fact that it looks relatively balanced. There's nothing wrong with the card, but Magnolia is that tight on resources that you don't want to spam this, neither do you even want to use this if you can just choose not to. So really, that's why this card's at a 3. It's really just there as a safety net. In the future, if Sylvans get better support, I have my money that this card is just being yeeted out of the deck as fast as possible. Now, the last card at the 2 of is Ghost Chase. Ghost Chase is widely very celebrated as a very good card in Stoicheia, both for D as well as Premium, and for good reason. Its skill is, when placed on the Guardian Circle or when activated, you choose one of your rearguards, put it back to your hand, choose your Vanguard or the unit that's being attacked, and give it 5k. So it's a 5k shield with the ability to bounce one of your rearguards back to hand. Its protection, its usage of triggers that you call, so let's say you called a trigger from the top deck skill of your right deck, you bounce it back to free 15k shield. Or you bounce something back like Eliana, you get to use it again. You bounce something like Duga, you get to protect Duga. So the flexibility is really there, but you notice it's only a 2 of. Why is that? Firstly, blitz orders are all once per turn. So if you use this thing once, you can't use any more for the rest of the turn. So generally, having a lot of this in your hand is really not good. Secondly, it's a spell card, which means that this card helps you. It doesn't help you offensively at all, just full stop. If you have this card in your hand and you want to, use it for offensive purpose, you can't. So really, the drawbacks are quite obvious. Really not much I have to say. Let's move on to the grade 1s. And now we move on to the grade 1s. I know I may be repeating myself, but bear with me. I have to break this video into many segments so I can actually edit and make this thing come true. So I'm sorry if I'm getting repetitive. Alright, our grade 1s are very simple. 3 Charis, 1 for the right deck. 4 PG, the superior PG, the better one. 3 of the spell card, Spiritual Body Condensation. And 2 of the new Festival Collection Doggo. So let's break it down. I've already explained to you what Charis does. It's just a really good card all around. The PG, really good. I mean, you want a PG, right? You want to live, right? Alright. The next one is Spiritual Body Condensation. It's an order that we stole from Zorga since it's really a good card. Its skill is very simple. When you play it, you Soul Blast 1 card. You Superior Call 1 card from the drop zone with grade equal to or less than your Vanguard. And then after that it gains 5k. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a skill. I'm not very good at my Japanese. But regardless, this is the same as Eliana, but you don't have to play Counter Blast at all. You can play as early as turn 1. Although you don't really do that, but you could, the option is there. So it's a pretty neat card if you ask me. Of course it's an order, so it does nothing offensively, but just being able to play this in 2 boxes your entire drop zone helps. And in 2 boxes at a much lower cost too, since you don't have to pay another Counter Blast for Eliana, so it's not bad. Also, it's just relatively flexible all around. The last card is the new Festival Collection card. It's another Sylvan Horned Beast. It's a dog. I can't pronounce the name. Whoever knows, you can do it. Its skill is very simple. It can only be called to the center back, and it cannot be called anywhere else. It cannot be ridden. Rode. It cannot be rode. So, basically, this is meant to be only behind Magnolia. And this is the brand new card for Festival Collection, which is just insanely good. You see, before that, you could just call anything and just swing with all 3 columns, but this specifically takes the center back. And this card is absolutely, phenomenally lethal from turn 1. And here's why. From turn 1 to turn 2 to even turn 3, you have a constant 15k boost to your Vanguard. And there is literally no way to describe how good this is. You want to talk about Varina's magic numbers? This thing does it 40 times better. If you boost any Vanguard's power by 15k in the early game, it's really hard to block. So this guarantees almost that by the time you reach Magnolia's huge finishing up turn, your opponent should have at least 2 to 3 points of damage already, which means your mini multi-combo attacks just really helps. I mean, come on, you swing 6 times and he's ready at 2 to 3 damage or even 4. There's not much he can really do about it. Then it gets even worse when this guy, this 15k unit, also helps during the multi-attack turn. You counter blast 1, you give 5k to your whole back row of Magnolia, this thing instantly turns 20k. Yes, it's not very impressive like, the pink bear, but the fact that it could still be used in the late game is insane. You've never seen anything like it, where a card can facilitate from start all the way to end without actually blocking or, causing the deck to be a bit slower or a bit weaker. This thing just totally facilitates the entire game plan from start to finish. So you may wonder, hey, sounds really strong and interactive. What's the drawback? The drawback is really simple. First of all, it has no shield, so it's essentially like an order, it's like a brick. Secondly, it can only be called to the center back, so you can't make use of this really strong card in any other column. Honestly, that can be played around so easily. If it doesn't have a shield value, just throw it away to enter the right deck, boom, open the toolbox, boom, you instantly assess it. Finish. You only need 1 on the field at any one point in time, so that's why we only play 2. You can easily just mulligan, draw your pieces, just superior call stuff. It's not that hard to get. Yes, playing 2, the only problem is you don't get to see it every game, but I assure you, as long as you mulligan correctly, you play your cards right, and if you see our trigger lineup later on, there really isn't much problem in terms of actually assessing this really good card. If you have access, the access 1 copy, just throw it away. No one will blame you. It's just that good. And last but not least, before we end this video, we need to cover the grade 0s. The grade 0s are shown below. So as you can see, our trigger lineup is relatively quite simple. We have a starter. Our over trigger is Breast Farball. We have a total of 5 crit, 6 draw, 4 heal. So relatively quite balanced. We do prioritize draw over the heal, the draw over the crit, because we do want our pieces, and our pieces are relatively quite lethal, so that's generally the thought process behind it. Breast Fireball is a great over trigger. It just helps everything, you know, it's all-in-one trigger. It's really good, so I definitely recommend it. However, just in case you can't afford Breast Fireball, or you don't feel that Breast Fireball fits your aggressive strategy, I'm here to say you're absolutely right. In fact, we actually have this guy, the base over trigger, which is actually seriously good with Sylvans. And why is that? Remember the grade 2 bear, the Gnosia? Gnosia's skill is transfer the power it has to another unit when it attacks. If you prop this over trigger, you can now choose 2 units to give it 100 million, and with the bear, you end up choosing 3 or more units to give 100 million, which basically means you win the game. So this card is, as compared to the other over trigger, Obaria in this case is pure offense. You know, it's just really the card you want in an all-out aggressive Sylvan deck. So it's just really good. But if you want something a bit more traditional, you want something a bit more stable, you would still choose to play Breast Fireball. Just something to keep in mind. I know a lot of people shit on the base OT, you know, like, oh, it's just trial deck trash. It has no real good application, it's just there for a while. I totally disagree. I think that the base OT is actually pretty solid on its own, in not just D, but in premium as well. I feel that even this card has applications that are just not very well valued in my opinion. So definitely don't sleep on the base OT, especially in the case of Sylvans because of the bear. And thus we have reached the end of the Magnolia deck profile. I once again, I just want to apologize that this is not like normal deck profiles. Usually you see a lot more hand movement, you see a lot more actual movement of the cards and whatnot, but in this case we just can't afford to do so, at least for this deck. I will try in the future for other D deck profiles that I do intend to cover to actually have them either physically as something I own, or even so it could be, you know, something I borrow from a friend and actually film it live. I think that would be a lot better for me. It's quite uncomfortable even to do this kind of thing, but regardless, I still enjoy playing this deck, whatever format I present it to you in. It's a deck that I do have quite a lot of fun in. It is the closest thing to parallel a traditional XL kind of deck. Traditional. It's quite similar to normal multi-attack decks. I think it's not that bad. In terms of skill level, it's not that hard to play. It's not impossible, but you do need some skill to master it, and it is quite worth it. Generally, I am quite happy with this deck. It's definitely not like the more weaker ones, like, you know, I would not name names where they're not as good coming out first set. I think Magnolia definitely has a strong foot starting in the main set, and will continue to have a strong foot unless we get much better control options in this game, which I kind of doubt at this point in time, but who knows. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please, you know what to do. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Stay safe. Goodbye.